And we're off. So the first preview I'm going to look at, I'm going to go out west. And I'm going to go with Nashville and Arizona. Why? Because nobody's talking about Nashville and Arizona. At least up here, it's all about what's Edmonton going to do, what's Toronto going to do, what's going to happen with Boston with the play-in, and what's going to happen with all the round robin for Boston, right? What's going to happen with the round robin teams is going to be the number one seed. And this series flies under the radar, but I don't think you can discount how good this series may very well be. Now, it may be a low-scoring series. We may be looking at one where there's a lot of 2-1 games. There might be a lot of overtime between these two teams. So Nashville, they are the one that technically have home ice advantage. They get last change in games 1, 2, and 5. That's the extent of home ice advantage. 35, 26, and 8 for a .565 winning percentage, which was 16th in the National Hockey League this year. 32 regulation or overtime wins out of those 35. So 3 wins in shootouts. On the other side of the board, you've got Arizona, 33, 29, and 8. .529 winning percentage for 22nd overall in the NHL. So neither of these teams in a contending position at the time of the pause. 28 regulation or overtime wins for Arizona. Out of 33, they only had 26 in regulation. So Arizona has to be looking at this as, hey, we've got second life right now. We've got a chance to do something fun. And if we lose the play-in round, we got a 1 in 8 chance of drafting first overall and getting Lafreniere. So the Predators were 6-3-1 going into the break in their last 10, whereas Arizona was 5-5. So Arizona was 1 up, 1 down for about the last month. And for Nashville, they were doing really well. They were rounding out. So for people who haven't watched my previews before, the jersey I'm wearing, that's the team I'm picking to win that series. And in this case, I just think Nashville should win it. But their power play 17.3% is below the power play for Arizona 19.2%. Their penalty kill 76.1% was problematic, and Arizona's 82.7%. Special teams favor Arizona. So if they can neutralize the Predators 5-on-5, they have every chance to win this. And then, of course, there are the other aspects of this, but we'll get to that. Goals leader for the Nashville Predators, Forsberg with 21. Assists, Yossi has 49. He also had 65 points to lead them this year. And Yossi has an excellent chance at the Norris Trophy. I don't know that he necessarily wins it, but he has a very good chance. On the Arizona side of things, Connor Garland with 22 goals. So your number one goal scorer in the series is Garland. Assists, Schmaltz with 34, and he also led the Coyotes in points with 45. Nick Schmaltz is one of those guys that he does fly under the radar. He gets paid pretty handedly, but he may be one of those guys that in a playoff atmosphere, he came from Chicago, who knows, right? Now, the guys to watch who I think had poor regular seasons, who might be looking to pick it up in the postseason, and these stats do qualify as postseason stats, although technically whichever team loses this series will not qualify as a playoff team in the NHL's eyes. Yeah, that's a great way to do it, both sides. Kyle Turris I went with over Duchesne. Now, Matt Duchesne did not have a great season for the Nashville Predators, and I think Duchesne would admit that. But Turris, 9 goals, 22 assists, 31 points in 62 games. We have seen with Turris in the past, he can get hot. He can be a big scorer, and it's possible that we see Turris over a 5-game series capable of maybe getting a game-winning goal, maybe getting a big highlight reel goal as well. On the other side, of course, for Arizona is Kessel. They picked up Kessel last summer. There was a lot of talk about how this would help their offense, and it really didn't work out. 70 games played for Kessel, 14 goals, 24 assists, 38 points. The goal scoring for Kessel has been fading for a while, but the playmaking is still there. And so there is still, again, that potential, much like Turris, where Kessel could potentially help Arizona get through this round. They're going to need that. They're going to need leadership from Kessel. They're going to need him to show, hey, you guys have faith in me, and you're right to do so. Goaltending is where this series will get very, very interesting. Pekka Rinne, 18, 14, and 4. Uncharacteristic .895 save percentage. Does the time off help him? Does the time off matter? Because maybe Saros is going to be their starter. He was 17, 12, and 4 with a .914 save percentage. Most of the regular season, Saros and Rinne were equally good or equally bad. And they started to diverge as we got to those last 20 games of the season, where Rinne's numbers were still not great, and Saros' numbers started to get better. So UC Saros may very well end up being the guy against Arizona, which would be interesting because Darcy Kemper for the Arizona Coyotes at 16-11-2, 928 save percentage, not too shabby. If this comes down to goaltending, Arizona absolutely has the edge. If this comes down to defense, I think it's kind of a saw-off. If it comes down to goal scoring, I give a slight edge to the Nashville Predators. This series is going to be close, I think. Antti Raanta, 15-14-3 with a 921 save percentage. If we end up in a situation where Darcy Kemper's unfit to play between now and when the series begins, I could see Raanta being capable of being just as good as we might have seen Kemper in a playoff atmosphere. If you're a Coyotes fan, the good news is this. If the Coyotes fail in this endeavor, it is at least a playoff-style atmosphere that the Coyotes find themselves in for the first time in 8 years. In a long time. Now, if we look at shots for and against per game, on the actually these are backwards. The 33.1 shots per game, that's Nashville. 31.3 against is Nashville. Shots for, Arizona 31.7, shots against 32.4. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it felt like during the regular season when Nashville had a ton of shots, they weren't getting goals. And when they had games where they were taking fewer shots, they got more goals. And it's bizarre. And on the Arizona side, they allowed more shots than they scored, which makes sense because they did rely on their goaltending regularly. But it is bizarre because, again, if Nashville has tons and tons of shots on Arizona, they may very well lose games that way. That's the way it worked this season, and I don't understand why, but that's what we saw. Now, over the last 3 years prior to this one, the Nashville Predators lost in round 1 last year. The year before that, they lost in round 2, and in 2017, they were Cup finalists. Nashville is definitely trending in the wrong direction. While I do think that they should be able to overcome the Arizona Coyotes and make it into the playoffs, I don't know that I would favor them to go any further than just that first round. On the Arizona side, of course, no playoffs since 2012 when Phoenix lost the conference finals. So the last time they were in the playoffs, they weren't the Arizona Coyotes. It's been that long. So the Coyotes really will be looking to change the narrative. And if they can at least force it to a 5th game, if they can at least make Nashville work for it, have a couple overtime games in there, it should be great experience for some of the younger players for Arizona. So when we're looking at the rosters and the training camp rosters, and there hasn't been anybody publicly yet that we've seen that they're injured, that they've decided not to come back. There isn't anybody at this point that I see as unfit to play who won't start the playoffs. And again, things can change over the next few weeks, but I feel we're close enough now that I can do these previews. And they'll still be hopefully relatively accurate. We don't see big outbreaks and stuff like that that's going to change these series. Now, if you're looking for under-the-radar players that could make a big difference. On the Nashville side, Tolvanen. Eli Tolvanen was supposed to come in last year and be gangbusters, and it didn't really work out. And it didn't really work out this year either. This might be his last chance to show Nashville and the Nashville brass, all right, I'm going to be a top 6 player in the NHL. I'm going to be a top 6 player for Nashville. I would not be surprised to see him end up in Europe if it does not work out for him. Rocco Grimaldi. So at the time of the pause, it hurts Grimaldi a bit. And there's so many months in between the pause and when we're going to get back to hockey. It's sort of like a brand new season. Hopefully Grimaldi can find that mojo he had last season because he was fantastic. And Yakov Trenin. Another one for the Nashville Predators that if you haven't heard of him, I think you will in this series. But we'll see. We'll see who ends up playing and who doesn't. And then how the line combinations work. On the Arizona side, you guys know I'm going to talk about Vinny Hinostroza. Hinostroza had 5 goals this year. And I know he's capable of at least 10 over a season. At least 10 goals for Hinostroza, I think, is something he's capable of. So I would expect more from him. But the interesting name to me on the Arizona roster, and I don't know that he plays, but Soderstrom being on their roster, that's an interesting one in training camp. If Soderstrom can come in and play, and if he can be one of the top 6 for Arizona, this is one of those ringer situations where you can look and go, wow, he didn't play during the regular season, came in, played the play-in round, and who knew that he'd be able to get them past the Preds. and Lawson Krause. So I talked about Grimaldi on this side as being a guy who maybe gets hurt by the pause. Lawson Krause this year looked like he was finally realizing his potential. And this kid can play. So if he is dialed in, and if Arizona can count on him to go out there and show the scoring upside that he was showing this year, on top of all the other physical gifts he already has, this is going to be close. And Krause could be one of those guys, too, that we're talking about. What a great Game 4. And Arizona stayed in it because Krause took over that game in the third period, scored a huge goal. And now we're going to a Game 5. That could be a scenario we're looking at. But there you go. Nashville, Arizona. Let me know your pick in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.